Okay guys, welcome back. So today we're going to do something a little bit special. I've got a thing printed off here to share with you. And this is an executive order that was pushed out last week. So I'm a little late to sharing this, but I wanted to allow adequate time for myself to research this because it has the potential to be a very big deal. And I'm going to read it to you in just a second. And it very much will affect government contractors, new or established. And this is around the GSA centralization of purchasing. Essentially, well, I guess we'll just go ahead and dive into it instead of me trying to summarize it. Today, President Donald J. Trump signed an executive order consolidating federal procurement for common goods and services in the General Services Administration, GSA, the agency designed to conduct procurement, which will eliminate waste, inefficiencies, and duplication and enable agencies to focus on their core mission of delivering excellent services to the American people. Since January 20th, 2025, GSA has coordinated the termination or economization of over 6,000 contracts already across the federal government. This EO expands upon those efforts by directing 1. Agency heads to submit proposals to GSA for consolidating domestic procurement functions for common goods and services within GSA, the agency with expertise in procurement. GSA and the Office of Management and Budget, OMB, to develop a comprehensive plan for consolidating common goods and services procurement across the government to eliminate waste and duplication while delivering the best possible service to the American people. The number 3, agencies to designate GSA as the executive agent for the administration of government-wide acquisition contracts, GWAC contracts. If you're not familiar, OASIS, for example, was one of the big ones. Continuing on, restoring common sense to acquisition. It says, President Trump believes that a streamlined, centralized approach to procurement is essential to ensuring taxpayer dollars are spent wisely and efficiently. The government spends about $490 billion per year on federal contracts for common goods and services, making it the largest buyer of goods and services in the world, as you probably know that. For too long, agencies have independently purchased office productivity software, leading to numerous challenges and inefficiencies, including pricing inconsistencies. For example, the cost of a comprehensive suite of Microsoft Office 365 services could vary between agencies by more than $200 per license. Consolidating the acquisition of the software in GSA could result in more than $100 million in savings per year. They're not just going to talk about like software and IT though. It does go on to talk about other services, which is why this is really important. Agencies buy a wide range of common goods like bandsaw blades and televisions, which could be centralized in GSA and result in a major savings for the American taxpayer. For a 32 7/8 inch bandsaw blade, GSA's average purchase price is 22% lower than the available through other government procurement vehicles on the commercial market. For a 50-inch flat screen TV, GSA's average purchase price is 20% lower than available through other government vehicles and almost 30% lower than the commercial market prices. The federal government routinely handles sensitive information and buys identity protection services to prevent and respond to data breaches. However, these are purchased in a decentralized manner, leading to inconsistent pricing and underutilization of volume-based discounts. And I know that's something that they're big on, volume-based discounts. GSA has an established purchasing solution that channels government-wide demand and saved $150 million in 2024 alone. Next, every government agency needs to purchase computers for their employees to effectively serve the American people, totaling well over $1 billion annually. Over the last 10 years, almost $6 billion has gone through GSA, which realized an average savings rate of 38%. While NASA, National Institute of Health, Army, and GSA have set up programs to establish minimum computer standards and leverage the volume of government purchasing to achieve savings, not every agency has taken advantage of the program to reduce their costs. And we are almost finished here, and then I will provide some comments and opinion, and I will also be interested in hearing yours. Centralizing and standardized procurement will make purchasing as simple and efficient as possible. Using the aforementioned savings example as a proxy, a 10% reduction in spending through this consolidation initiative could result in approximately $50 billion in savings to the taxpayers each year. This EO builds on the administrative's broader commitment to fiscal responsibility, cutting unnecessary bureaucratic bloat and redirecting resources to priorities that directly benefit the American people. And then lastly, President Trump's Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE, has already identified more than $100 billion in estimated savings from a combination of assets, contract lease cancellations, renegotiations too, fraud and improper payment deletion, grant cancellations, interest savings, programmatic changes, regulatory savings, and workforce reductions. So I will have the link for this down below. They'll take you directly to the White House source link for that, so you can read it yourself. If you like talking about this, there's been actually a few other developments. Let me know in the comments if you want me to make those videos. But for now, we'll take some time to hold space for this and talk about it. So if you didn't get what I just read, we'll start with today is tea day. If you didn't know, we don't have our standard Stanley Cup. We're doing lemon ginger, and it's kind of lukewarm, so it's not the best. So if you didn't totally follow what I just said in layman's terms, this executive order, the president has ordered the GSA, which historically the buying arm of the federal government. If you think of federal government agencies as kind of all playing a role, they have a part to play, they have their own respective missions, technically speaking. You can think as GSA as the buyer. They buy stuff. And the 90s, remember even like the movie like War Dogs was based on that period of time where things were much looser. Okay, historically speaking, there wasn't as tight regulation, especially around small business procurement. That's why the story of the movie War Dogs and so many other stories from the 90s happened. They were able and allowed to happen because of the less scrutiny. And that less scrutiny occurred very much in part because of the moving away from GSA and instead the allowing of the autonomy of individual agencies, federal agencies, to buy for themselves. So there was this kind of like expansion that took place, this autonomy that said, hey, you know what, it's more efficient for us to buy for ourselves because we know what we need better than what you know what you need, GSA, and it's actually going to be more efficient. You know, this is back in the 90s versus kind of like do it ourselves, right? And with that came probably some positive, realizations and gains through agencies buying for themselves. But it's also allowed a lot of weeds to grow. There hasn't been the strict oversight, and there hasn't been the kind of passing through the head of a needle of the contracts, which means less scrutiny, overspending, and then a lot of what we talked about in the article is the duplication and the inefficiencies. So kind of, doing the same things over and over again. You're paying $200 more, you're paying $200 less. Like it's a mess, right? And that's kind of, the problem that has been allowed to grow pretty much unrestricted up until 2025. So with the new administration coming in, especially with the new agency, DOGE, looking to realize savings, that's what is prompting and motivating things to come back to GSA, forcing contracts to go back through that eye of a needle. at least in theory, at least at high level, at least as much as we can discern with the limited kind of, couple minute read that we just did. When I heard that, I'll be honest with you, kind of made me freak out. It's why I've waited to share this video, because I just wanted to have more time, talk to other people, get other opinions besides mine. Because the way I initially thought about how that could be implemented is GSA schedules. And if all federal contracts are gonna be put through a GSA schedule, that would be very bad, honestly, for everybody. And so that doesn't really make sense to me, but I will unpack that a little bit if you don't immediately follow what I mean by that. First off, if you don't know what a GSA schedule is, it's a vehicle, like a multiple award schedule, technically, that aligns with a certain good or service, right? So literally associated with a specific NAICS code. When you're on a GSA schedule or a MAS, it gives you access to a reduced pool of bidders who have already had their pricing rates and a pricing catalog created, predetermined, pre-negotiated, and accepted by GSA. So the government already knows what your pricing is going to be. So because you've gone through that somewhat lengthy, possibly expensive $20,000 to $30,000 process to get on a GSA schedule, now you have access to a website like SAM.gov, but it's called GSA eBuy. And then instead you will log into that, and then you will see those opportunities that are not on SAM.gov. Okay, so you get access to privy contracts. So if everything was to be put through a GSA schedule, and not everything, but if there's going to be a large, significant shift to more than half of, we'll say, federal contracts going through a GSA schedule, that means those contracts will then only be available to GSA contract holders, not open market, which is like so much what we talk about here on the channel and have so for years, and pretty much is the go-to, SAM.gov, for new government contractors. That would be very, very bad. So if one of the main goals of government procurement is to facilitate competition so that they get the best price and the best value, reducing that competition and keeping it only for those who already on a GSA schedule, right? Or those who have the money to get on one, which will be way reduced compared to the whole pie, right? Then it'll feel more like the same companies are getting the same contracts over and over because there's fewer who are eligible. And that's kind of what I've been wrestling with and having a really hard time with, because that doesn't make sense. That does not seem like an efficiency. Now, of course, all those contracts being awarded will be through those predetermined, pre-negotiated rates. But then at the same time, a lot of the same companies will be getting the same contracts too. So that's not best from a value standpoint. So that was my immediate, worst case scenario thought. Because if that were to happen, it would dramatically affect, as you can imagine, and I'm not trying to scare anybody here, but it would make it very hard. It would be a tall wall, a big barrier to entry here. And it just doesn't seem like that's not what's best for the American people. Okay, especially small business owners trying to enter federal government contracting. So that was my initial thought. And so then I started talking to some people. Like I said, there's been some new articles released just over the last couple of days. So if you like this, you want me to... All right, hey, so apparently when I wave my hand with this new Samsung S25, guys, I just switched from Apple. I've had an iPhone my whole life ever since smartphones, and I just switched to have better video and better screens for doing these YouTube videos because I'm recording from my phone. And then I waved my hand, and apparently that makes the video stop recording. So we're gonna have to edit this back in, and I'll kind of pick up where I think it cut off, which is GSA schedules, but we're gonna move on to my other points now. So besides the take on GSA schedules, Personnel efficiency. So a lot of what's going on is, as you probably have heard, but maybe not, a lot of kind of not buyouts, but opportunities to leave, especially like contracting officers, within the federal government. A lot of people are taking that. Okay, you can call it a buyout. And so there's a giant workforce reduction happening in the federal government right now. Excuse me. And so part of that is, okay, if, as we were talking about with that autonomy, with agencies buying for themselves, well, if they don't need their own contracting office, their own team to buy, and they're going to use GSA, then this GSA centralization could be more of a personnel type thing. With, I know that, it's not 100% because the article literally talks about like TVs and bandsaws, so they did talk about pricing, contract savings, but a big piece of this could be personnel efficiency, having GSA kind of do more with less. And another part of that is with AI. So GSA, they've also, again, I'm getting ahead of myself with some of the other recent articles, but GSA has also been tasked with utilizing AI and implementing AI to help with buying and procurements, which is going to be wild and crazy. And I don't know that it would be forward facing to us, industry, the bidders, government contractors, but behind the scenes, at the very least, it's going to help GSA's procurement to do their job doing more with less, just like AI is disrupting all industries, right? So that's another possibility, that it's wouldn't affect us government contractors as directly in terms of open market contracts being posted on SAM.gov. It could be more of a personnel efficiency piece. Another point is, and I'm curious about this, I'm curious what you think too. I'm curious what effect it will have on now that the autonomy is gone, what effect will it have on the agency's individual abilities to meet their needs or to now have their needs met, right? So now they will have to be going through essentially a third party rather than doing this themselves. It arguably can take longer. It could be potentially more inefficient that way, which is why this is really interesting to me, because you could be just trading one inefficiency for another, but we don't know what the end product is going to be. But that's a possibility because now there's more links in the chain. Don't know how it's going to play out. But that could result in agencies getting what they need slower and kind of having their own unmet needs. So I know that federal agencies, there's going to be some level of pushback depending on what the implementation is. So I do expect that to have an effect, a pushback from the agencies, because they're going to really be concerned with meeting the respective missions. And if, as this says, to enable agencies to focus on their core mission of delivering excellent services. But if it's going to take longer, or if what they're getting is not exactly what they need, because maybe GSA, the buyer, isn't understanding, the scope of work, the actual work that's needing to be done. Like if they're literally writing scopes of work for them, we don't know how this is going to play out. We don't know how the implementation is going to be. But, I know that the new administration is kind of coming in and making a lot of big moves and shaking things up. But I don't think this is going to be something that happens overnight. There's going to need to be they're going to kind of need to work together on this. So I expect this, for that reason, to be more of a slower unveiling and slower adoption and implementation, rather than something that's going to happen overnight. Now, they did announce, and this will be for a future video in the series again, if you guys would like to hear that. They kind of gave some timestamps, and I believe the GSA did respond to this executive order. And there's been some other folks, kind of like the head of GSA and OMB, kind of providing some feedback on this as well that I think is helpful. And I'm happy to, print off some more sheets of paper and kind of read, dissect, analyze, share opinions on that forthcoming information if that's something that you guys would be interested in hearing. I don't want to do that for like every single one of these videos, but I don't think there's anything wrong with a couple of different formats, and it's what's going on right now. So I think it is important to talk about. I just think it's important to talk about it with realizing we don't know everything, and we can only take the information that we're given, and to act like we know what's going to happen or to freak out or whatever is not an appropriate response. I think for sure federal government procurement is going to change after all of this, but I still think there's going to be lots of opportunities for established small businesses, new GovCon small businesses. There's not really room for middlemaning on GSA schedules, which is why that was one thing that was concerning to me, because the pricing is already so tight. And when you middleman, there's that extra 10, 15% or whatever, because there's literally another company involved. But for open market contracts, SAM.gov, like what we focus on here on the channel and talk about, at this stage, with information I have, I still believe that there's still going to be like vast opportunities. And if nothing else, to start with SAM.gov contracts, and if they decided to do more GSA schedules, win some of those contracts on the open market first, have that proof of concept, leave your job or whatever that kind of next step would look like for you in terms of getting more serious about GovCon. And then once you have, returns on your investment of time and stuff, you can then reinvest that instead of paying taxes on that. Take those profits from some of those initial contracts and maybe reinvest that to getting support, to getting some approved rates, creating your pricing catalog, and getting accepted onto whatever GSA schedules, if things were to go that way. We don't even know that that's what's going to happen. I have some, of course, not connections, but colleagues in the biz, contracting officers and other folks that are highly networked, and they more or less are agreeing with this take. And that's also why I kind of waited a week, because this was, I think, March. Doesn't say on here, but I'm pretty sure that this was initially released March 20th. And today, the day of recording, is March 28th. So I've used some of that time to not only spend some time online before presenting this to you, but I also wanted to take some time to speak with some of my comrades as well, because multiple minds are greater than one, right? So we kind of talked about the GSA schedule thing, kind of like worst case scenario. We kind of talked about what I would call more like middle or intermediate, right? I also think there's a possibility that there is a better than, a more optimal outcome from all this as well. And, being a realist here, rather than a pessimist, I need to try to shed light on all possibilities so that you can make your own judgments and your own decisions and form your own opinions. Since SAM.gov is essentially operated by GSA, and if GSA is being tasked with centralization for federal agencies across the board, maybe there's a possibility that there's stuff that hasn't been coming to SAM.gov or whatever that will start to. Just a little prelude from something else that I've read in one of those more recent articles is that not everything would even fit on a GSA schedule, so they're kind of axing those. But maybe instead of axing those, they could put those onto the open market because they don't fit perfectly into like a predetermined GSA mass schedule. And then there could be other things, maybe more micro purchases, maybe more P cards, maybe more like sole source type stuff, or just contracts below the SAT that don't make it to SAM, potentially, since SAM.gov is essentially operated right, by GSA. Maybe GSA would realize, hey, we've got these schedules, but we also have this great open market resource for kind of a catch-all for these other contracts that aren't fitting. And maybe there's a reality where more contracts get put onto SAM.gov because it can be a catch-all, right? Because everything goes on SAM.gov as it is anyways. Not every contract, but all industries in some shape or form make it essentially to SAM.gov. For some contracts, for some industries, there's more on SAM, others there's fewer, and more of it's tied up in a GWAC or a MAS, right? But they just went through that rollout and transition of SAM.gov, remember, from beta SAM to SAM, and now they keep making improvements on it. So I think SAM is going to still be a top kind of go-to, and it will be interesting to see how that plays out. I don't know if that's painting an overly rosy, unrealistic picture, but in my best attempt to be a realist about these updating news, this news and updates, maybe there is a possibility. And maybe there's a little bit of negative, and maybe there's a little bit of this positive, and it ends up being more of a net kind of wash where for us, small government contractors, we don't really see a huge effect. I mean, that would be great too. So I'm curious if while you were listening to this, if there's any things that I haven't mentioned that you've thought about. And maybe you have been somebody who has been paying attention to some of the other articles. Maybe you've kind of know some of those things that I haven't touched on yet. Feel free to share that down below. Whenever there is great, and this is kind of the last point, whenever there's great periods of disruption, transformation throughout history, and I don't have to tell you this is just a reminder because you already know this, great transfers of wealth and just great transfers of a lot of things, even like what AI is doing with the great disruption of AI. A lot of people will freak out because the way of life as they know it is changing, and that is scary because there's a risk that, things may not be as good as it was. I would challenge you, I would challenge myself, I would challenge anybody listening to this. As a government contractor, is this a time where there's going to be a great opportunity with this disruption and these changes? Is this a time where this is the best time to become and get started in government contracting because of all these changes that are taking place? When everybody's running for the hills saying they're cutting contracts, they're cutting DOE, they're cutting FEMA, all this stuff. It's not going away, but it is changing. And who's going to be best suited to take advantage of things when they inevitably kind of settle down, things calm down, procurement and bidding, proposal writing and finding bids, it's not going to totally change, but there will probably be some new ways of going about it. And is there going to be opportunity there for government contractors to come in, do things in this new way, this new approach, right? Whereas maybe some were turned off and they left. And you're coming in saying, I know that it's new, I know that it's different, and I want to learn it, I want to do it. And I know that people who were, the tree that doesn't bend in the storm breaks, but the reed, just kind of bends in the wind and it makes it through the storm unscathed. This is definitely a time where we need to be adaptable with our mindsets. We need to be flexible. We need to be open-minded. And because for myself and, probably a lot of you watching, there are too many opportunities right now to go to negative town, to go down the rabbit hole. I've had my freakouts recently. I'll be totally honest with you. I've spent the last 5 years, but I've been in this industry for over a decade. The thought of this just totally kind of screwing things over so much so that federal contracting is unrecognizable from the way it's been is a very scary, daunting, terrifying thought. And I've kind of had to reel myself back in again, to be quite honest with you, and having conversations with others in the space that have probably been in the space longer than me and they have access to information that I don't have, is why I'm making this video today, to try to give you more than just what I could give. It's kind of the pulse on the street that you may not have access to that I do. But now we all have access, everybody watching this has the same access to, because I'm sharing it with you. So is there opportunity? Is it a time to be excited instead of being afraid? GovCon is not a thing where you come when you're not paying your bills, right? It is a long-term vehicle to meet your financial goals, and those things that financial goals actually mean to you, because money is meaningless. It's what does the money translate and mean to you? Freedom, legacy, supporting your friends, family, community, whatever your why is, that's what it means. And federal contracting is a vehicle that very much can help you attain that, maybe better than other vehicles, right? So I think that's a good thing to think about as we are doing our best to ponder and discern as these kind of waves come at us each month here in 2025. But guess what? We just got through COVID, man. The world was ending in COVID. Except federal contracting actually went nuts. Some contracts struggled, but there was like cleaning contracts, sanitation, all that. Some supply material contracts, as you imagine, went gangbusters. A lot of people made a lot of money in federal contracting during COVID, right? But it was still a very scary time. And I don't know, man. I've been saying it, my generation, our generation. Gosh, I was 13 at September, when September 11th happened, right? Up until then, I don't remember anything being on the radar that I cared about. So it was September 11th. I was homesick that day. I was playing Diablo on my computer. Some of you may be around my age. I'm 37, going to be 38 soon. So maybe you have a similar story. Where were you on September 11th? We were all somewhere, right? We all have a story. But for this age demographic that I'm in, millennial, started with September 11th, 2001, and then 2006, 2007, 2008, the housing crisis, right? And then we also had the war in the Middle East, Afghanistan, actually kind of before that, but continued throughout, because that was happened after 9/11, right? So 9/11, then the war that continued on, then the housing crisis, and then things kind of seemed to be pretty good in the teen years, right? And then things started going kind of sideways at the end of the teen years, right? And then COVID happened, and it's just kind of been nuts for our generation. COVID, and then now here we are with all the new waves that are happening. Saving money is great. We are in such a deficit, and I don't want to get political or get into that, but I know that there can be positive things, takeaways that come as a result of pulling off these Band-Aids, right? It's just, for some people, pulling off the Band-Aids is going to hurt more. And for those of us in federal contracting, pulling off Band-Aids is definitely probably hitting more close to home than a lot of other people. So that's why we got to be smart, be intelligent, and kind of band together here, and at the same time continue to do our jobs in government contracting. So I think that's all my bullet points. If you haven't yet, I've created a free training that is great for new GovCons. It's a tight 55 minutes. Definitely check that out. I will link it up below. If you haven't yet, get my book. It's 200-page paperback. Very proud of it. And I also have my lot of testimonials on the book. So don't take it from me. GovKidMethod.com/book. I'll have a link for that down below as well. And then for those of you who are wanting to like dig your heels in, we are about to get into the busy season, guys. Whatever's happening, it's going to be slow, and we're probably not going to see, it's my opinion, and it's also teeing a little bit onto like a future video for this series, if we make it one, in terms of those timeline things that I mentioned. It is possible we don't start to see strong implementation until the end of the year or into 2026, because there's going to be a lot of back and forth, right, from the agencies, other agencies, and their needs to the GSA. So we are heading to the busy season. We've got a lot of time left in 2025 to win some contracts, to make some money. My comprehensive flagship course can help you a lot. We don't just focus on one thing, but we focus on essentially the main pillar foundational areas that you are needing help with, whether it's understanding legal middleman regulations, whether it's actually finding bids, whether it's writing proposals, step-by-step proposal writing, whether it's working with subcontractors, or maybe it's contract management. We also have new information in there, new updates. I keep updating the course on factoring, accounting, some of these other things that happen after you start winning contracts, so that you can, if you're not there yet, at least you know what to plan for. So definitely, I'll have a link for that below, but that's not the free training, that's my flagship training. Highly recommend that. And if it's something you're serious about, get the book, because I do offer a discount for the flagship training, because if you got the book, I know you're serious, and I only want serious people taking my trainings. So start with the book. It's the price of a book. It's $30. I sign them myself too. I pack them and send them out. Me and Lala, we take them to USPS. We don't do like Amazon fulfillment, drop shipping, that sort of stuff. This is my product. I'm very proud of it. I like to have full control over it. So if you buy something from me, it's coming from me directly. I try to keep things as authentic and kind of genuine as I possibly can. In an age that is becoming more and more AI driven and you don't know what's real or fake, I want to be more real than the next person. And I want to be as real as I can for you guys, because I think that's what's going to help you the most. And it's just one of my values. It's probably my highest value in my life and how I like to live my life. So we'll go ahead and wrap up, guys. Like, subscribe. If you know somebody who needs to know about this news, right, GSA centralization, send them this video, share this video with them, so that they can be on top of it. And then lastly, again, let me know if you are interested, if you liked this kind of reading the article thing. Hopefully it wasn't too boring. But if you want to hear more about more updates, if it's worth making those videos, you gotta let me know. That's the only way I know to make them. So have a good rest of your day, whether you're driving home, at the gym, going for a walk. And again, how are you liking these style of videos? They're different from me, but I feel like I get to be more myself, share more of my personality, and they're a bit more comfortable and enjoyable to make. So hope you're getting something out of it too. And we will end it here and see you in the next one.